Hey, everybody, welcome to the Daily Objective. And today we're going to be talking about the hot talk of the town, yesterday's vice presidential debate, the first and only one between VP Mike Pence and contender for the VP, Kamala Harris. A lot of people have a lot of opinions. And for once, I don't really have that much of an opinion, but maybe that's not true. Maybe you'll get it out of me as this conversation goes. But I can't do anything alone without this guy right here, the guy who has often been referred to as Lord Emperor behind the scenes, the man, the myth, Razi Ginsburg.
Hey, Rucka. Yeah, well, if I was the Lord Emperor, maybe I could make this whole thing go away. Actually, I yesterday we were talking about what we're gonna do, and um, we had a manpower issue, and I agreed to step in and said, why don't we do a recap of the debate? As soon as I started watching it, I regretted that because I realized I would have to watch the whole thing. Actually, I was watching it on ABC's YouTube stream, and the first thing, or one of the first things that really bothered me was when one of the people on ABC, her name was Yvette Simpson. I think she's a politician, but I don't actually know. So she said, uh, "Thoughts and prayers to Mike Pence." This is an exact quote. "Thoughts and prayers to Mike Pence. Debating a black woman is not an easy thing." Now, she is a black woman, so she can say that. But the first thing I was thinking was, imagine if Donald Trump had said something like that. This would be, the next 4 weeks. This would be what people would be talking about. So, and I was actually surprised because the reporting on ABC. It's been a while since I've seen anything from them on news because I don't live in the U.S. It was the kind of partisan reporting that I expect from Fox News and MSNBC in America. But
Wow.
apparently that's how everybody.
So right off the bat, we've got PragerU's very own boomer correspondent complaining with the most elementary school arguments. Why can black guys say this, but white guys can't say this? But don't you see some basis for that type of standard that people have? Like you and I, last time we were both on this show, we were talking about how much we dislike Israelis. Obviously, we both are, I originally was. I've been 2/3 of my life in the U.S. Have a bit more of a solid foundation in Israel. We can sit here and badmouth Israelis. Whereas if a couple of guys that had no proximity to that country sat around saying they hate Israelis, it might be perceived as more hate speech. So don't you see like that there's some kind of difference between a black woman saying, "Ooh, good luck, Mike Pence, debating a black woman," versus Donald Trump, the guy who says, stand back and stand down, also saying, good luck debating that black woman. You don't see a difference?
First of all, did I say I dislike Israelis? I mean, I have issues with the culture, but there are some Israelis I like a lot. So yeah, it's not a blanket thing. And this is like my problem with that. Kamala Harris is when we get to the debate itself. I mean, she's horrible. She's a horrible person. You can see that from the way she debates, regardless of if you think Trump, having 4 more years of him would be worse than having Biden. I can see the arguments for that, but she is horrible. And if you say, okay, this is a black woman, this is what you should expect, then that's kind of, yeah, that's deterministic. I don't want to, I don't want to let her off the hook for being the disgusting human being that she has chosen to be, which
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot of animosity I'm getting from you, and I'm wondering why that is. So first of all, let me be the child in the room that's just completely blissfully ignorant. Why does everyone hate Kamala Harris so much?
I don't know why other people hate her. I hate her because she has this like passive aggressive thing with the smiling and the cackling, and she has this she did this thing a couple of times where Pence interrupted a little bit, which is not nice, but it also happens in conversations. And the way she said, I'm speaking. It was very much what you'd expect from a feminist who's seems like she's responding to all men, and I've seen some tweets of feminists celebrating that because women can't speak unless they have to they fight back whenever a man speaks out. By the way, the first time she said I'm speaking when he briefly interrupted her. Seconds later, it was his turn to speak, and she interrupted him.
Do you
But I
think maybe you're keeping score a bit more because it's Kamala Harris? Like, do you think if it was just a couple of men interrupting each other, do you think maybe you would not read into it so much and psychologize and attribute all these mass generalizations, like this is feminism versus men and this is this and that, like in the spirit of introspection and bettering yourself? Do you think maybe you're bringing some baggage with you into this
No, I
experience?
definitely, I don't think I would react the same way if it was two men, because she would, a man would not react this way to another man in this kind of style of, I'm standing up for women against this person. By the way, there's a British conservative magazine, The Spectator, and they had a piece today by Kate Andrews, who said that Kamala Harris was debating as if she was debating Donald Trump, not Mike Pence. And with Donald Trump, you can expect, and we saw it last week, he does not let the other person speak. So you need to say, like, I have no issue with Biden saying to him, shut up, man. He didn't shut up. So he didn't let
Well, obviously, you had no problem with Biden saying that. He's a white guy. So let me ask you this. What if Kamala Harris was a friend of ours philosophically? What if she was the good guy in that debate? Would you still be so horrified by the way she goes, "Excuse me, I'm not finished talking"? Would you be upset by that?
again, if it's for that kind of minor interruption, I would be more upset by it, because I don't want my side portrayed like that. When it's somebody who's of the left, I normally I would want to say I hope it would lose her votes, but then again, who are the votes going to go to? So I've said before, I would not vote in such an election. I don't know how you can vote for either of these candidates. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, the more I hear from just like the more I hear from Trump, the more sympathetic I am to people voting for Biden. The more I hear from Kamala Harris, the more sympathetic I am for people voting for Trump. And I will say that Mike Pence, by the way, I have some notes. I have very little to say about him. He's pretty much a non-entity. I mean, he was, his presence was not felt there. In
Mm-hmm.
that debate.
You know what, Kamala? So, I mean, I'm asking you these challenging questions in this spirit of separating your own kind of baggage that you bring with you to this experience versus what's actually objectively true. Like, so when I look at Kamala, I like her. I'm like the only person who actually likes. I mean, I don't want her. I hate her ideas. She's probably a terrible person at the end of the day. But in terms of her presentation, the way she talks sounds like Stacey Dash, the Clueless actress who became some like Fox News correspondent. The movie Clueless. Yeah. Anyway,
I'm aware of the movie Clueless, but I don't remember.
the sound of her voice I like, and her smile. But here's the thing. But
She likes to smile. Oh.
yeah, because it reminds me of like the suburbs, these like suburban Democrat moms who like just completely let their kids do whatever they want. Like remember when Kamala said, "Oh, we have a 20-year-old or a 20-something-year-old." She doesn't know how old her kids are. Like she reminds me of the moms, like my friends' moms or whatever, the houses I could go to where we can like get away with doing whatever we wanted to. Like that's and anytime we see her, she's like, "Oh, hey," like super warm smile, and then she goes about her business and lets us do what we want. So I sort of bring this very positive affiliation with Kamala Harris. But again, I don't know her. We only know bad things about her mostly. And there's a lot wrong with those neglectful suburban moms as well. So it's a very associational sort of automatized response, because when I was a teenager, when I had bad habits like smoking marijuana, I learned to like the parents that would allow us to get away with that. Whereas the more of the Mike Pence types of dads out there, we saw as completely useless to our values. So obviously, my values were what needed work more than that. But Let me ask you this. So people say, you're racist for hating her so much. And I've sort of alluded to that a little bit. Not that you're an actual racist, but do you think maybe like she triggers you a bit extra because she's a strong Black woman? But before you answer, we know that the antidote to racism is objectivity, right? And we know also how difficult objectivity is. So do you think maybe you bring a little bit of like white guy rage with you to this whole thing where you're a little bit deep down? I know I'm sounding like the left where everyone's flogging themselves and nailing themselves to the cross and saying I'm the reason George Floyd was killed. I get it. Like what I'm bringing sounds like that. But, since we know objectivity is so difficult, do you think maybe there's a little bit of racism involved here?
No. So the skin color has nothing to do with it. The angry feminist thing, it is a gender thing. As I said, I think it's a gender thing for her, which is what I don't like, because again, she was debating Mike Pence. She wasn't debating all men. She wasn't, fighting back against centuries or millennia of oppression. She was making her case for being one heartbeat away from the presidency. And she made it in a way that I found obnoxious, arrogant. By the way, her smile, I have to say something about her smile. I don't know how you found in her smile, like letting her smoke weed. By the way, didn't she go after people who smoked weed as a prosecutor?
Yeah, but she was a prosecuting attorney. Okay, but I have that on my list. I got a list today. We got a list. But look, but it just sounds like I know we're stuck on this, but this to me is like more interesting than politics and policy. You're saying that she's debating as though she's a feminist addressing all men. Aren't you projecting? Aren't you making it about feminism versus all men? All she literally said was, "Excuse me, I'm not done talking." A billion people a day say that line when they're interrupted.
Well, she said I'm speaking a couple of times in a row in a sort of aggressive way, and with this pause and look at him. He stopped. She had this pause. She had this look in her face. So yeah, to me, by the way, back to her smile. To me, that smile is it's always misplaced. It's always at the wrong time. It is this passive aggressive sort of reactionary smile that is not a genuine smile of somebody, smiling to somebody because they're kind.
Okay, listen, I'm just saying you want to be careful, okay? I mean, we have a tendency as human beings with so many abstractions in our mind that we've developed over life to sometimes misplace these things. Now, I agree with you. At the end of the day, she's probably a terrible, power-lusting person. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that, but to attribute all of that to her, the smile on her face and her saying, "Excuse me, I'm not done talking," it just sounds to me like a lot of projection. And it's just like when that kid from Covington was smirking at the American Indian hitting the bongo or whatever he was doing. And everyone said, "Oh, that smirk that boys would give you in kindergarten, that they think they're better than you because you're a girl." And you just have to hit pause and say, you're basing all of this on what? A look on somebody's face?
So I don't remember how long that video was, but it was seconds, right? That kid. And he's a kid. So she's an adult woman who I put myself through 90 minutes of watching her behave in this kind of way. And by the way, I see a problem with the direction in which I'm taking it. And I saw this even as I was thinking about it. I remember in the 2000 election, which I was following, and it was Bush against Al Gore, and people were saying, the talking heads were saying people vote for whoever they want to have a beer with the most. So and that's why they voted for Bush, supposedly. So I don't want to fall into that trap. And I actually think I don't drink beer, but I think if I was hanging out with Kamala Harris, I might start drinking beer, and a lot of it. But yeah, if somebody is that unpleasant, then it should factor into.
I don't drink alcohol at all, but I gotta say, Kamala Harris, I'd rather hang out with or whatever, or have a conversation with. It sounds like a fascinating experience to kind of see what's beneath the surface there, and also people are going to get upset at me for saying this. I find her attractive. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to lie? I can't be as integrated as yourself and just say, oh, she is a feminist who is at war with men. I just don't see that. I just don't see that. But here's what I do see. I see a person who was a prosecutor. And let me ask you a question. You know, I've gotten the impression that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that like between you and Nikos, our absent co-host, maybe you sometimes feel that he's a bit more friendly to the right than a rational individualist should be. You're nodding. So for the audio listeners, he is confirming that there's some truth to that dynamic between the two of them. And sometimes I wonder if maybe you and I have a similar contrast where I think you're way too giving police the benefit of the doubt and you're way too dismissive of, you know, Black people wanting equal rights. I know that's a hyperbolic way to put it. But let me ask you a question. Since you're such a Mike Pence fan and you hate Kamala so much, that's a joke as well. But let me ask you this. I mean, this is more not so much putting you on the spot, but more in the spirit of understanding what people are saying out there. Mike Pence gets up there and goes, oh, well, I have the deepest respect for the men and women who put on that uniform every day. But then when Kamala said we should legalize weed, Pence says to her, well, you're the one prosecuting all these people and throwing them in jail. Okay, so we have the deepest respect for the people who put on that uniform and go around arresting drug offenders and roughing them up and questioning them and passing them over to the prosecutor. We have the deepest respect for the police, but then the prosecutor is responsible for prosecuting these crimes. Can you explain to me the difference between these two people?
No, I'm not a Mike Pence fan, so I'm not gonna defend him. As I said, I barely noticed his presence, and I did notice, you know, some very, very negative things. I mean, he is against abortion, which is definitely on its own. You know, I can understand people who just because of that would not vote for him. So yeah, I would not defend him, but as I said.
That's it. That's all you have to say is I don't like him because he's against abortion. Listen, I have often said, oh, these conservatives, they only defend your so-called right to life while you're in the womb. And then as soon as you're born, your rights are contingent on its value to society. So I will offer you a mirror type of question and say, so we are arch defenders of a woman's right to abortion. But how about a woman's right to not be arrested for drug charges, which conservatives are dying on the Hill defending, it seems. Even though now, Mike Pence is happy to throw Kamala Harris under the bus after conservatives like himself, probably including himself since he's an old man, have died on the Hill of keeping drugs illegal. But the prosecutor now is the guilty party. So help me understand this. Politicians are scum. Prosecuting attorneys are scum. But the police officers who go around arresting all these drug offenders, oh, I have the deepest respect for them. Why? What's the difference? I'm just asking. I think all of them to a degree are victims of the system that they're placed in. And in another respect, they're all sort of part of the problem. I don't know who's more guilty than the other. But why is it that like police are like, we have the deepest reverence and respect for the police who go around arresting drug offenders all day, but the politicians are just blanket villains, and the prosecutor sounds like we have no problem calling villains as well. Can you explain to me this?
No, because I think you should have the right to, you know, use whatever drug you want. And Kamala Harris said she would decriminalize marijuana, which is a very small baby step in the right direction. Great. She's definitely better than Pence on this, but I don't agree with you that this is in any way, you know, even close to the right to have an abortion, which is, you know, the right to have accepting that a woman who needs an abortion may have most likely made a mistake in getting pregnant when she didn't want to. But that's not a mistake that you should pay for the rest of your life.
Fair point. I mean, fair point that abortion is a more serious issue. Like it's a life-altering issue as opposed to the right to, let's say, buy drugs and have a night of fun. But I mean, but to my larger point that I'm asking, like, why is it when it comes to police, I see so many, alleged friends of liberty. They just can't wait to stick up for the police and say, no, there's no racial bigotry. There's no problem. What can you in your mind remember that what police represent is similar to politicians? They're people with a legitimate job. Politicians have a legitimate job. We believe in government as a necessary good. However, when we have a lobby system, politicians quickly turn into scum who are making arbitrary decisions. And when it comes to police officers, they have a necessary job. They are a necessary good. But in reality, they have been representatives of this lobby system, of this preventive crime enforcing body for a very long time. Is it inconceivable that a lot of them are full of it and that there's a serious problem here? That people are being given arbitrary power over their fellow man, that police officers are in the same category as politicians? No?
It's definitely not inconceivable that, they obviously have powers that they shouldn't have. But no, I wouldn't put them in the same category. First of all, because I don't know of anybody who goes into politics who I would define as good. Whereas I can understand why somebody would want to go and fight actual violent crime. And now it's a very serious problem that within the police's, within a police officer's job description, there's also violating people's rights. That's a very serious issue, and we should talk about it a lot. But I don't remember ever saying that everything they do is good. I just have an issue with people who celebrate the murder of a cop or
we abhor that type of thing. So let me offer you as a closing thought piece, because we are over time. I'll sort of tie together this idea, this subject of police and of, possibly having racist inclinations, as I semi-accused you of or asked you to introspect about earlier. Let's tie these two things together. And I will offer you a line from the show The Wire, which is a show largely about the police and how they are constantly pressured to, clean up the neighborhoods instead of actually solving murders and things like that. So this relates to police as well as racial bigotry. There's the police chief or something named Rawls, chief or commissioner or something, Rawls. And when he's talking to the newly elected mayor, the mayor is asking him, why is this problem the way it is? Rawls says to him, look, I'm not any more racist than you are, and then he explains the problem and he blames affirmative action for some of the problems they're dealing with. But that line, look, I'm not any more racist than you are. So there's a tool I will offer you the next time somebody accuses you of harboring some bias or prejudice.
Oh, the only person who accuses me of that is you.
So the next time I do that, just say, look, I'm not any more racist than you are. It's a good way to, it's not really that defensive. It's just handing it over to the other person and saying, I'm no more racist than you are. It's a great way to pass the accusation, flip it back on them. So there's
my way to pass the accusation is I said some stuff about Kamala Harris and her feminist attitude, and you somehow brought race into it. I didn't even know she was black until
you brought up the lady earlier who said, good luck, Pence, debating a black woman.
Yes, that was a racist statement.
It was a joke made by a black woman. I mean, if you rip on Israelis, nobody thinks you're an anti-Semite pro-Hamas guy, right? So there is some context. I'm the king of anyone should be allowed to make any joke. Trust me, but I'm just saying, when it comes to your strong reaction, I think you were a little bit dropping context, saying oh, imagine if a white guy said that. Listen, one battle at a time, one battle at a time. All right.
Well, it's all the same battle.
It absolutely is. On this, we agree. It's all the same battle. It's all integrated. And thank you for joining us today. You brought your blazer. You stepped to the occasion. You mentioned earlier on how you didn't particularly want to do this episode today. So thank you for letting the audience know you didn't really want to be here with them. But we are happy that you joined us.
Well, I want to be here on more positive topics.
And we're going to have you back on for many more positive topics. So keep that blazer ironed and clean, because we'll have you back very soon. Thank you for joining us today. And as always, we want to know what you think. Leave us a comment. It's good for the algorithm.